Hi everyone, I'm Chef Susie with Escoffier Online. Welcome to our session this morning. This morning we're going to be learning how to make the biscotti cookie. It's a classic Italian cookie, nice and crisp. It comes in a variety of different shapes and sizes and also flavors and textures. It's a great cookie. It's good for dunking in your coffee or even your tea. And a lot of Italians dip this cookie in their sweet wine as well. So please try the biscotti, explore the biscotti. I'm going to be showing you a super basic recipe today using the creaming method, which most of us have done a lot. And you can just branch out from there. Like everything else in your baking and your cooking, the flavors and textures are limitless. The biscotti we're going to be making today is with some anise, which is very classic, and some almonds. You can add any nut. You can add pistachio, or you can add walnuts, or even pecans. You can go without nuts. You can add chocolate chips, white chocolate chips, and a variety of different flavors such as chocolate, lemon, orange, coconut, you name it. You can add it to your biscotti, and even amaretto. Just classic. So knowing all that, let's get started. We just have a few basic ingredients. We're just going to be creaming our butter and our sugar together. We're going to add our eggs, we're going to add our flour, and then we're going to fold in our almonds, and then we're going to form these in some logs. They get baked, they get cut to dry, and then they're ready to serve. So let's get started. Okay, so I've got some pastry flour and some baking powder. You'll typically see leaveners in these cookies of some form. And I've got a little bit of salt in here too. We're going to go ahead and sift these dry ingredients together, and then we're going to set them aside. And please let me know if you have any questions. These are super simple. If you haven't made them before, be sure to give it a try. You'll really like it. And like I said, the flavors are just absolutely limitless with this. So I've got my room temperature butter in my mixer. I'm going to be adding my sugar, and we're going to go ahead and mix this up, and then we're going to add some anise. So while this is mixing, maybe some of you can tell me if you've made biscotti and maybe perhaps some of the flavors that you've made. And keep in mind too that mocha is also a great flavor for biscotti. It's limitless. So once you're exploring these, please let me know how you're doing and maybe some of the flavors that you're making too. So we're just going to be creaming this. Going to scrape it down. And then we'll be well on our way to our biscotti cookies. So I've got a little bit of anise extract. This is one of my personal favorites. You're not going to want to use any like fresh whole anise, but extracts are great. And like I said, any extract, even liqueurs, perhaps amaretto, and sambuca is also a licorice liqueur that's great for making biscottis too. So please let me know if you've made some biscottis and some of the fun flavors that you've made as well. Be sure to let me know if you have any questions too. Okay, so now that our butter and our sugar is well mixed together, just going to scrape down our bowl a little bit here. And then we're going to be adding our eggs. Like I said, super simple. The creamy method, we've done this before. Okay, and please let me know if there's any questions. So we're going to be adding our eggs a little bit at a time. As soon as these are well incorporated, we're going to go ahead and add our flours. And then we'll put the almonds in last. I always put my nuts in by hand. This way there's no breakage. I'm using whole almonds with the skin. A lot of times you'll be using blanched almonds too. And you can even use almond slivers or sliced almonds if you like. Just with the whole nut, you really get some nice texture, and you also get a super nice look because you're going to be cutting these and you'll be able to see the whole nut. Okay, so our eggs are well on their way to being incorporated with our butter and sugar. And please let me know if there's any questions. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of the egg. And keep in mind, as always, you're going to want your ingredients to be at room temperature. Our butter, unsalted, at room temperature, and our eggs as well. This is great for incorporation, and especially if you're aerating things such as eggs, they aerate much better when they're at room temperature rather than cold. Okay, so these are pretty well incorporated. We're going to pull the bowl down and scrape it, and then we'll be adding our flour. These are super easy to make, and we're going to be forming these in logs, and they freeze very well, so keep that in mind. If you're making some ahead of time, or even if you're producing these, you can store this in the freezer. And please let me know if there's any questions or perhaps comments. Okay. So these biscotti cookies, you can make them in different shapes and sizes. When I'm talking about shape, we're going to be putting it in a log. You can do it very rounded, or you can do it even a little bit more flat for a little smaller, more delicate cookie. Okay, looks like we have everything incorporated. Let's go ahead and add our flour and our baking powder mixture. It's got our salt in here too. And it smells great in here. The anise is a great flavor. It's off a really good scent as well. Okay, we're not going to mix this too much. This dough is a little bit sticky. If you're having a hard time handling it, or maybe if it's warm in your kitchen, you can use a little bit of flour when you're shaping your log, or you can put it on some parchment. It's a little sticky to work with, but you'll be happy with the results. Okay, so we have a nice dough. It's well incorporated. I'm going to pull this off, and I'm going to do the rest of the mixing by hand. I like to mix my nuts in by hand, like I said, so there's not a lot of breakage, especially since I've got some skins on these almonds. I don't want to be getting any of that skin into my dough. Okay, and do we have any questions on anything? We have a question. The question is how long can you store these in the freezer? I would say for a couple of months, and they store pretty well. Just be sure you're always wrapping them up really good. You can store the logs before you actually cut the biscotti, or you can store the biscotti once they're finished and cut and dried. So however you like. I recommend if you maybe have a bakery, or you're working in a restaurant or a hotel and you're using these often, put your logs in the freezer, wrap them up really good, just cut them and try them out when you're ready to use them, and then they'll be a little bit fresher, but you can store them in their finished state too. What's nice is you can dip them in things too. You can dip them in chocolate and other nuts and just a variety of things. So definitely have some fun with your biscottis and your flavors and textures too. And finishing your biscottis, you'll really enjoy them. Okay, so I'm just carefully folding my almonds in. And then our mixture is done. Like I said, this is going to be a little sticky. No worries. Just kind of do your best to form this. I'm going to be putting a little parchment down. I've got a little flour just in case. You don't want to use too much of this, just if you need it, maybe for your hands. I suppose you could put a little oil on your hands too. That helps with sticking. So just have some fun with your biscottis. No worries. It's going to be baked, so you don't have to worry about making it perfect. It's going to be baked and cut. So I kind of like to form these a little bit on parchment. It's a little sticky here. I've got my bowl scraper. Maybe we'll just pick this one up. And some of these doughs they could be even more sticky than this, and you may have to actually kind of spoon them onto any parchment or anything that you're using. And this one is a little soft here. Let's go ahead and kind of form this again. And do we have any questions on anything? Yep, you can kind of just form it in your hand a little bit. Then we're going to be putting it on a silpat or baking parchment to bake. So there. Okay, so what you can do with these logs is you can kind of leave them round for a more domed biscotti, or you can flatten them out a little bit too. And the flatter ones will be just a little bit more more thin and more delicate. Perhaps if you want to use them on a dessert, it's always nice to make something a little bit thinner. So we're usually going to make our logs about 2 inches long. And like I said, you can go ahead and press these down, or you can leave them completely domed up, however you like. So these are going to get baked at 325 degrees, a little bit of a lower oven. And you're going to bake these for about 30 or 40 minutes until they turn golden brown in color. So please let me know if you have any questions. So let's go ahead and set these aside, and we'll look at some baked logs. Okay, so I've got a log that I baked earlier. I made this one a little bit flatter. And you should leave these cool before you cut them, and you're just going to be slicing them with a sharp knife. You can use a serrated knife or a French knife. Just make sure that your knife is sharp, especially if you're going to be cutting through some of these almonds. And do we have any questions on anything so far? So you can cut your cookies straight across or on an angle, whichever you like. You can make your logs bigger or smaller. Like I said, flatter or more domed, whatever you like. I like the kind of thinner biscottis. I like the more delicate look, and I think they're easier to eat, and I sometimes will put them in a dessert or serve them with a creme brulee on the side, or even in a parfait. You can even make them quite long and thin. So just explore your biscottis and let me know how you're doing. So we're just going to be cutting this log. And like I said, the size is really up to you, however you want your biscottis to look. And the ends make great little crunch to maybe your trifle if you're making a trifle. You can put that in the bottom with some of your cake. If you're cutting your biscotti and you're having some problems with it, it could be a little too warm. Make sure it's cooled off, and it's going to cut nicely for you. And then you're just going to line these cookies up on a tray and dry them out and finish them if you like, and they're ready to go. So please let me know if you have any questions on the biscotti. So it cuts nice. I've got a nice sharp knife. Cutting nicely through my almonds. Like I said earlier, you can store these logs in the freezer and then just finish these when you're ready to use them. Okay, so we've got some nice biscotti pieces here. And we're just going to line these up on a parchment lined pan or a pan lined with a silpat. And then these are going to go back in the oven at 325 degrees again to get dried out. They're going to get a little more golden brown. You can stand them up. If you're making some higher biscottis, you're going to want to lay them down like this. So you're toasting them. So you're going to put them back in the oven for maybe 10 to 15 minutes. Keep an eye on them. They're just going to get a little toasty, and then this is going to dry them out and give them their classic biscotti crunch. So please let me know how you're doing on your biscottis, and if you make some biscottis in different flavors, I would really love to hear about it. So let's go ahead and take a look at some that I dried out earlier. And if you have any questions, please get those in because we're getting ready to say our goodbyes. Okay, so I have the same biscotti from another log from the same batch that I dried out earlier. It's got a nice golden brown outside. The bottom got a little more brown too. There's a little browning on the outside, and it's completely dry. It's nice and crisp. It's ready to dunk in your coffee or your sweet wine. So thanks for joining me today. Be in touch. Let me know how you're exploring your biscottis, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.